Good afternoon, everyone. Yang Yan Zhao back again for the beginning of the day of too many streams with the man who is apparently my doppelganger from across the pond. Ed Jowett, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you very much, and thank you for having me around. The day of too many streams, dare I ask?
Well, I have another stream tonight with a man, Tyler C. World, who is from a YouTube channel, Draw and Talk. And we're going to be talking about
I
how
know
to
him, yeah,
market. Oh, you know him? Oh, excellent.
yeah,
We're going to be talking about how to market the heck out of your indie book.
fantastic. Anyone watching now, go watch that. It's definitely worth it. Tyler knows his stuff.
9 p.m. Eastern. But for the moment, you're here. So you are the founder of Shades of Vengeance, I believe, correct?
I am indeed, for my sins, yes.
So, a lot of people enjoy tabletop role playing games. A lot of people enjoy making their own campaign. But what is it that made you say, I think I should make my own system?
It's funny. I think more people homebrew a system than most people in the community perceive. When you have made your own system, you hear so many more examples from people about things they did, and what happened. It's actually a bit of a funny story. I went to Durham University here in England, and I joined the Indoor Gaming Society, and my first ever in person role playing game what was Paranoia,
Oh.
which I had a roaring good time. It was great fun. And the following week they didn't have enough GMs. So they're like,
Hmm.
can anyone GM? And I like the idiot I am, went, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it. I've never stopped GMing since. Like I've seldom played since I did that. But what happened over time is I got closer and closer to the people who were coming along to that particular club, and we decided that we wanted to do a 24-hour game. And this was something that was done every year. It's quite literally 6 4-hour sessions with basically no break for the players, and then each GM gets like one session off to sleep. And we constructed our own sci-fi world. And when I say we, there were 6 GMs, but it was really myself and one other guy who worked together to build this world. So, he said, "Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this." I said, "Okay, well, how about this, and here are some aliens and so on." And we ran it on the World of Darkness rule set, give or take, adapted slightly for sci-fi. So we ran the 24-hour game. It was a roaring success. People got to play as aliens, which they loved, and people got to run around in space and save billions of lives, and it was all good. And then I graduated, and I left university, and I went into the world of work, and I did nothing. No role playing, nothing. No, like, my world was coding every day. I was a developer. And one day I just decided that I'd like to run a game. I missed it. I tried running on IRC a little bit. This was before. This was some years ago now. This was before video was quite so easy to get sorted. And I eventually got some family and friends together, and convinced them to play a game. They loved it. And I sort of ended up running the same campaign that I'd run for that 24-hour game, sort of just taking them through that same story. We got to the end of it, and my brother said, "Hey, Ed, if you write down the rules, because I have no idea how you're making these decisions whatsoever, but if you write down the rules and how it works, then I'll run the next game." So I was like, okay, cool. So I went ahead and wrote down the rules, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so sort of I chatted to a documentation guy at work about the best way of displaying some of this stuff, and some of the things that he showed me I actually still use today. And I wrote down all the rules, and another day I just happened to be chatting with a friend who lives out in Canada, and I showed him the thing, and he said, "Hey Ed, I know Kevin Sapeda from Palladium, and I've spoken to him many times about publishing role playing games and stuff. I think this is great, and you should definitely publish it." And I was like, "Okay, sure, like cool. I mean, I'm gonna need to do some stuff and get some artwork and so on, and well, yeah, it sort of spiraled out of control over the interceding 10 years, 11 years since then. I've published 150 odd games, books, comics, miniatures, a movie. It spiraled out of control, but it all started with that sci-fi game. One of the people, where did Era the Empowered come from, is the next logical question that you should ask, and I'm sure you would. I'm going to preempt
Yes.
you. One of the people who came on board for writing some stories to flesh out the world of Era the Consortium, here I go, used to write superhero comics. And he said to me, "Ed, hey, I want to write some comics," and we wrote some sci-fi comics. And then he said, "Ed, I really want to write some superhero comics. Can you please make a superhero world so I can write some superhero comics?" I was like, "Okay, well, like all superhero role-playing games are generally perceived as really bad. Like in general, superhero games are not well looked on. Perhaps with the exception of Marvel Face Rip. Like mutants and masterminds for like individual people like individual things, and individual groups like individual things, but like, universally they're looked at as like, whoa, this genre is not generally dealt with very well. You either have problems with your powers being not very balanced, or you have problems with like it's such a high bar of like actual use of your powers that you don't want to most of the time. So I looked at, I looked over all of the games. I'd played a few by then of different ones. I looked over all of the games, and I tried to figure out what it was that was wrong with each one. And I tried to make a game which didn't have those problems, I guess. And that's where Era the Empowered came from. I find it very frustrating. And I'm going to go back to sci-fi for an example, but I find it very frustrating in role-playing games that if you want to play Firefly, you pretty much have to buy the Firefly role-playing game. Not very many things handle that super well. And if you want to play Star Trek, or you want to play Star Wars, or you want to play I don't know, Starship Troopers, you're probably looking for a rule set that and a game that is designed and tweaked around those things. So when I created Era of the Consortium, what I did is I created a timeline that allowed you to hop in where you wanted to and had equipment that was planned for. It's not as broad as sort of a GURPS, which, can handle anything. Again, downsides, upsides, definitely it can handle anything. I think there are balance problems in there with certain things, and you can run into issues. I find that it's not right for me, and I made the game that I wanted to, so I could play any subgenre of sci-fi that I could think of, and I'm a lifelong sci-fi fan. When I came to make Era the Empowered, I followed the same kind of principle. As someone who's enjoyed a lot of superhero stories over the years, I went ahead and went, okay, well, what do I want to see? What is it that I would want to play? So I created a game with multiple different events, and each event offers a different sort of subgenre of the superhero story. So you can start at the very beginning. You can do Event Zero, and Event Zero is the emergence of powers. Like, no one really knows what's going on or what empowered are. They aren't very common. People are reacting with fear and confusion. If you want to play that kind of story, like you're one of the first, you can play there. If you want to play a little later, when things start to be established, maybe the first Avengers movie, or perhaps like very early Justice League stuff, or that might be event 1, where battle lines are being drawn a little more. People are starting to band together. Then there's a big event, event 2, when Atlantis just attacks. They just march on the surface. They're just like, I've had enough. I mean, my joke is Atlantis always attacks. In every single superhero universe, there is an undersea group of people in Atlantis who attack the surface for reasons. So I had my own reasons, and it gives you that feel of that alien unknown force from within the world attacking what the people who assume they are the dominant species. We then move on to event 3, which if you wanted to do something like Young Justice, you might use. It's like the groups are even bigger. The collateral is getting bigger all the time. You've got sidekicks. You've got small groups forming on their own, doing their own thing. That's sort of like escalation is what event 3 is all about. Then I go into the more sort of meaty areas of story. The old gods return, and you've got the gods from mythology who just seize the world, bits of the world, and go, I'm the ruler of this place. It's mine now. This is my territory. Come in here and I'll whack you. And the people are just lost. The empowered, the heroes are trying to figure out what they're going to do. You've got some villains, volunteering to be lieutenants for these old gods, and getting their own piece of power. And you've got all of that beautiful mess of what happens when suddenly the most powerful people in the world are not the most powerful people in the world anymore. Then you've got event 5, where the Assassin's Guild decides that empowered are just too much of a threat. They're too much of a problem. They're too unpredictable. They're too hard to deal with. We're just going to assassinate all of them. We've got all of, they break into the main archives and records of the good guys, and they steal everything. They break into the bad guys and steal everything, and they do the kind of the Batman contingency plan for the Justice League kind of thing. They just go around just wiping out as many as they can. This obviously gives you an opportunity for that. It's not like Empowered or Unknown like in Event 0, but you're very set upon, you're under threat every minute of every day. How are you going to survive this? It gives you that sort of flavor. And then at the end of that event, we have event 6, where you have the government takes over. And this is one of the events I've actually done the most games in at conventions and stuff. And
so there's sort of regulation.
Yeah, I mean, there's regulation. There's the whole Mutant Registration Act thing is very much a thing. Like the you have to register as a superhero, or go to as an empowered, or go to prison. If you register as an empowered, you have to go to your local empowered department and spend a certain number of hours there and do certain things. The empowered department is a government agency run by the government in your country. They are nominally linked and nominally all led by one empowered, who's the figurehead. The reality is, all these governments, they're doing their own thing. You've got powerful governments doing whatever they want with the empowered, which obviously is prone to various problems, to say the least. You've got, empowered being sent into countries that aren't cooperating with the global community. You've got those themes you can explore. You've got the opportunity for sort of some really dark government plots. What they, or maybe even individual plots about what these people in power are actually doing with the abilities. I've explored a lot of really fun themes, from the government is lying to you and they are making all the empowered into robots for some reason. To some like really like genuine, oh, you know what, we're sending you here because this is a problem that's going on with this community, and we want you to fix it because that's and that offers that government controlled feeling where you're never entirely sure which one of those you're getting. And then finally, there's event 7, when an extraterrestrial threat, just this enormous, it's hard to explain the hunger, this enormous monster arrives on the planet. And it is an existential threat for all of humanity, especially for the empowered, because it spawns these people in a very loose sense, who are the previous generation of empowered, who were removed by this thing. If one of these touches you, you lose all of your memory about empowered, all of your abilities, everything. You lose everything. And it's about fighting this existential threat. That if you look at it, it's sort of Galactus has arrived. Oh no, what are we gonna do? We are so screwed. And that can be a lot of fun in a campaign as well. So within the game, you actually get all of those things to play in, and obviously you can apply. There's a wonderful group of people who did a podcast for several years on various different era games. And they did an Era of the Empowered game where they called it Cowl Cops, and they did like a 1960s Batman inspired thing where it was just utterly ridiculous. The rule set completely allows for that and supports it. And it was just a flavor on the Event 6, the government controlled, that they were doing, because they were like, they were the Cowl Cops and they were known, but also they had financial difficulties because they couldn't get insurance, because all the supervillains keep doing things and they're on the scene, so they can't get insurance for what they want to do, and save lives. So they had that, and they had a very comedic take on this, whereas my personal style is a bit more serious, a bit more epic, I guess. But you can do whatever it is that you want, and you can fit the age of comics that you want to fit into this timeline in your way.
That's interesting. I really like that idea of a timeline for how you sort of have the different, I guess you say, session types or game types mapped out. One of the big arguments I hear recently is, you have a lot of especially the OSR guys talking about it must be 100% sandboxed. And then you have people like, especially more modern generations, who like more of a storyline when they play along. So how do you, when you're writing these things, how do you find that right balance?
So for me, it's about writing a framework, right? I am not, this is going to sound really weird, I'm sorry. I am not creating a role-playing game. I am creating a universe and explaining what that universe is like.
Okay, that makes sense.
If you come at it from that direction, then you have a story that you can follow. You can write any number of adventures or mini storylines. I really like the DC animated stuff from the 90s and onwards. I'm a big fan of most of Bruce Timm's work. And I only very recently watched the Death of Superman and the Reign of the Superman, the double thing that he did for those two. When I say recently, sorry, that was during COVID, so not that recently, although more recently than it feels.
It all kind of blurs together.
I thought to myself, well, I've got my main character that dies, disappears at least. I could have a lot of fun with some of the themes that he's brought up here, and I just wrote a campaign that was like the return of Martian Pantsman, because that's this guy's name. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. We can go into it later if you'd like to. But like it's like you've got the guy who's emulating him, who's trying to help people because once upon a time this person helped them, and they want to help people, but their powers are completely different. But they like wear an outfit that's similar. You've got the cyborg who's a plot, who's trying to like pretend to be this guy so the people believe that he's the real one who was, and you can, so that they can manipulate the empowered and get them to do what they want. Not quite as extreme as the cyborg Superman in Apocalypse creates, but like more manipulative than that. And then you've got a shapeshifter who's pretending to be the real one who actually did survive, and you've just not seen him for a while. You've got these, you've got all these, they're all running around, and you're like, oh, um, okay, he died, and like he was our leader, like we really respected him, and you can play with these themes and have your story that you're talking about while being, there is nothing at all in the core rulebook that even hints at that stuff apart from the campaign itself. So, when he vanishes, someone else becomes the leader and we move on with our lives. What you need is the framework to tell any story you want to. And given that I create comics, I create movies, I want to be able to create other stories within this world. That's really, really important to me. So, yeah, when I say I don't create role playing games, I'm creating a universe in which you can tell any story and you can learn as much about. As soon as you sit down as a GM and players and you are running a game, it's your universe now, right? You can use the story that I've written or use, strip out the story and do your own thing. You can go, hey, I want to run The Boys. One of the guys on my team wants to run a session of The Boys. He took one look at Irene Power and said, yep, that's the one. That'll do the job. I just want to use the world of The Boys, so I'm going to do that. But I'm going to use Irene Power to do it. So what you want to do is totally up to you, really. And in terms of sandbox versus story, I think if you provide the story, but you don't make it so integral to the game that you can't play without it, then you have the best of both worlds and anyone can have whatever they want.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of Era the Empowered, currently you have a Kickstarter up for the 5th anniversary edition.
Yeah. That's a bit misleading in itself, which is kind of funny. Allow me to use some visual aids to explain. This was the original Era the Empowered rulebook. It was a rulebook primer. It is just around 40 pages long, 32 pages long. And it was my first attempt at the game and sort of building the universe. It was designed to put together and just show off what it can do, give the system very limited universe, much more the complete sandbox that you're talking about. Do whatever you like. This was actually published in 2016. So in that sense, it's not the 5th anniversary. This was published in 2018, which is why it's the 5th anniversary. This is a 300-page core rulebook that includes all of the story that I was talking about. It details, a whole bunch of different empowered abilities. We revisited it, remade it, and sort of really fleshed it out properly. Index there. There are a bunch of pre-made sessions in the back that you can play if you want to. Now that was 5 years ago, and people have really enjoyed playing the game. Both before and since, from Rulebook Primer. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. From Rulebook Primer onwards, people have really enjoyed playing the game. But I did mention earlier I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And while I am a pragmatist and I know you have to get your book out into the world, there's no point in sitting there working for 10 years on a thing that no one's ever going to see.
Right.
I like to come back and go, you know what? This is fine. There is nothing wrong with this book. There are a few errata, but, there's nothing wrong with this book. But over 5 years, I've been asked some questions that the book maybe doesn't answer as well as I would like it to. I've found that my description of certain things around building the power trees, it's clear to some people and it's less clear to other people. The book would benefit from some more examples. There are like the Return of Martian Pantsman campaign. It's not in the core rulebook, but I want it to be in the definitive edition rulebook. So it's a revisiting of this. There are more power trees that I've been asked about. So there are actually 45 example power trees in this book, which is a lot. But and I have in fact, there we are. That's the bottom there. But forgive me. You can get a much better view of this on the Kickstarter. But there is a huge range from elasticity to weapon creation, turn your hand into a weapon, enhanced vision, which also includes laser eyes, or reality control, sort of Neo style Matrix, Neo from the Matrix style reality bending, size changing, spiritual medium, all kinds of different powers are in here. But, are there a bunch of things that I could probably add? Well, yeah, I mean, there are always more superpowers you could add. I've been asked for a few, which I think are really good ideas. Invisibility, invisibility and phasing as a thing. Now, density shifting exists, illusion creation exists, but yeah, and you could probably put something together. And there is guidance for building your own power tree in here. But
nice.
when someone comes and asks me, how do I make an illusion power tree? I think, well, illusion, it's probably worth thinking. Yeah, let's include that. Sorry, invisibility power tree. What am I saying? When someone comes and asks me that, I'm inclined to help them. I even did an update on Kickstarter today. Someone asked me, I want to play Raiden from Metal Gear Rising Revenge. Metal Gear Rising Revengeance is what the game is called. I haven't actually played that one, but I think that's what it's called. And I thought to myself, right, you know what? That sounds like fun. That sounds like a challenge. How do I make a cyborg that can do what Raiden can do? Has limitations like Raiden does. And I went away and I made that power tree, and actually it's in a publicly available update in the Kickstarter how I made that power tree. So if you're curious how that would be balanced, go check that out. But there's a bunch of stuff that I do want to include in here that I think will enhance it. Again, there is nothing wrong with the core rulebook at all. I think I can add more to your gaming experience. And if you like Era the Empowered, or you want to get into the Era the Empowered, I'm really pleased to bring the best book I can possibly bring, as well as, 70 quid's a bit much. This book's available on the Kickstarter as well. There is, as I say, there is nothing wrong with this book at all, apart from a couple of errata that really, really I want to fix, but they're listed on the website. So, if that's... It's been in production for 5 years. It's clearly fine.
So I had one other question when I was looking at the campaign today. So you mentioned that this includes the core rulebook, and going on the Shades of Vengeance website,
Yep.
you have a ton of other games in the, I guess you'd say, Era series, which we talked briefly before. You mentioned they all use the same core rules, right?
That's right.
All right. So if I were to back Era the Empowered today, would I just have to pick up the new modules if I wanted to play other, like, for example, there was this Balam, more space stuff, or what exactly do I need once I get this book?
So I have always... It's a trade-off, right? It's one of those things that's actually a really big problem on how you deal with it in the role-playing game industry, right? It's actually a thing I think is a large issue. You get some people who are in the camp of, here's a core rulebook, these are the core rules, and then here's a source book, basically, that delivers superheroes or sci-fi or whatever. I went the other way, which is everything you need to play the game is in this book. In fact, you can get the entire rules for free that don't include the superhero bit. So if you want to see the core rules, there is a free booklet. If you actually scroll down in the Kickstarter a little bit there, you will come across it quite quickly. It's called Era D10 Fundamentals, and it's got a nice big graphic with it's a purplish graphic. You can't miss it. It's a bit further down than that though.
Here we go. Okay.
There you go. So the Era D10 Fundamentals that links to, which just goes to our store, and you can go ahead and download that for free. It's the core of the rules. It explains how skill check rolls work. It explains how combat works. What it doesn't explain is anything to do with the power tree, because this is the core rules that exist in Era the Consortium, Era the Empowered, Era Liars, Era Hitman, Era Balam. You name it, it's in all of them. Then each game has its own setting and its own set of rules. Now, Era Balam that you mentioned is actually a very small book. Here is, if I can pull it off the bookshelf, here is Era Balam. It's actually extremely small. It doesn't provide a lot of world information. It's got some pages of world information. But this on its own has the entire rules you need to play the game. You don't need anything other than this book to play Era Balam. That does mean that you are technically buying the rules bit twice.
Hmm. Okay.
So those, 20, 30 pages of rules of how you deal with everything is in both books. It's expressed a bit differently in this book than this book in order to help you, more get into the theme of what they're doing. But yeah, you're technically buying those twice, and you can get them for free. So I don't look at it as I'm selling the rules per se. I look at it as, here is the game with everything for this game. It's one
Okay.
of the reasons that I brought out Era D10 Fundamentals, was to sort of demonstrate, if you want to go and play the Era D10 rule set and you do not want to play one of my settings, if you are, I want just the sandbox, go get Era D10 Fundamentals. You're very welcome to it. Please consider supporting us in some way in the future if you like it and you want us to, continue making stuff. But if that's the thing you want and you want it for free, go get it for free. It's cool. It's there. It's designed for exactly that. Yes, it's good for, here's what the rules are all about if you want to go read up on them. But it's also my gift to the community, as it were. If that's what you want out of this, here is Era D10.
Ah, yeah, that's really interesting to me. I know, way back in the day in TSR, they produced a game called Gamma World, which is sort of like after a nuclear horrific event. But it was made in the ways that you could theoretically transfer your D&D characters over.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me that, using the
So
system, we. Mhm.
fun you fixed on Balam, because that is one of the games where it's absolutely happened. People, so Balam is a game based in space fighters. It's got its own world. I've been told by someone that their group, they played Era of the Consortium, which is more like you've got fighters in it, it exists, but it's more like a person role playing game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Era Balam is about the duality of you and your fighter. Together, you are an entire character. But what they'd do is they'd play an Era of the Consortium, they'd run away, get in their fighters, and then they'd switch over to the Era Balam rules and go, here you go, right, you're in your fighter, you've got these abilities, go do your thing. And yeah, being able to move between games is a possibility. I even wrote an entire zine about like how you would cross over between various games. Era the Empowered in the world of Era Survival. So you're a superhero in the zombie apocalypse. Only superheroes were strong enough to survive. Everyone else is a zombie. What would that game look like? What would the themes be like? What things could you do? Are the superheroes and supervillains still fighting at that point when what you're ruling over is land that's destroyed and zombies? Like, is that a thing you're doing? That's a really fun concept to me. And the idea is that they all do run on the same core rules. They all have their own differences, but one of the things that I'm doing right now, and I have been for a little while, is I'm working on a miniatures game. And the idea is that basically there are characters from all of the Era games within this miniatures game. And, like the superheroes are balanced with the sci-fi guys, because the sci-fi guys have the high tech and the long range weapons and the energy shields and all that stuff. And the superheroes obviously have their superpowers that let them do various things. And then you've got the Era survival folks who are just tough as nails and have more weapons than other people because they are, that they live in a zombie apocalypse. They're ready to fight at any moment. And you can bring all these things together and balance them quite nicely, even though they are like these separate, nominally separate worlds, separate characters with separate abilities. That's a thing that's really important to me. I've never written anything that's actually like, oh, you can port your character from here to here, but it's not hard to do.
The basic tools are there.
Issues between some games. Like, I'm not going to try and pretend that I've written GURPS here. I haven't.
Right.
The fantasy stuff is not balanced with the sci-fi stuff. I'm not going to try and pretend it is. There are some games where I make it harder to carry lots of equipment because I want to limit you and make it really difficult to have loads of stuff. And then some games where, you just have extra encumbrance because size is added into encumbrance in Era of the Consortium, but it's not added in Era Forbidden, for example. There are, the weapons in some games. In Era Survival, the weapons are super, super lethal. Like, you shoot someone with a gun, they die. In Era of the Consortium, you shoot someone with a smaller gun, they're quite unlikely to die. Like, I mean, shoot them with a big, nasty gun, then they're quite likely to die. But shoot someone with a small, like, handgun, they're not very likely to die. In Era Survival, you shoot someone with a handgun, somewhere around 50-50. So, the different worlds are tweaked in different ways. But that's an advantage, because that means that playing an Era of the Consortium character, sci-fi character, in the Era Survival universe with Era Survival weapons is a different experience to playing an Era Survival character in the Era of the Consortium universe. That they're actually different experiences because of the way it's tweaked. So, zombies put the infected from Era Survival in the Consortium universe, you have a very, very different experience, not just because it's sci-fi, but mechanically to putting the sci-fi weapons in the Era Survival universe.
Oh, interesting. And another thing I was wondering, it definitely seems very focused on the tabletop experience, but do you have any, or do you know of anyone playing it for online games, like a Roll20 or?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. We and I've posted loads of times on the Kickstarter, and I really do mean it. We run online on Discord. We run somewhere between 3 and 5 games a week on Discord at the moment. During COVID, I mean, I was running seven games a week.
Wow.
We are on Roll. Well, we Era of the Consortium and I think Era Survival are supported fully on Roll20. You absolutely could run, Era the Empowered or any of the other games on Roll20. I was asked about that during COVID, and I did what I could. So yeah, I mean, people are playing it online very frequently. There's no issue at all. I've run at online conventions over the years. There's one called EtherCon. Obviously, during the year of COVID, there were a lot of online conventions, and I ran at a lot of those. But yeah, I make sure that I put aside at least one evening a week to run or play online. I think it's the only way to reach people your side of the pond, right?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to have a game with the creator of the game at some point? Well, mostly it's people who've never actually had me as a player who want to play games with me. No, in seriousness, yeah, absolutely, it works really well online. Because of the way that the rule set works, and I haven't talked about that yet, but broadly, it is a multiple D10 dice pool. It's easy to roll. It's easy to see whether you've succeeded or failed very, very quickly. And then it's somewhat similar to Old World of Darkness or New Shadowrun in that you'll roll a bunch of D10s based on your stats, adding 2 stats together. Your threshold will vary based on the difficulty of the action. And so 7 might be a standard, but if it's really easy, it might be 5. I know a lot of people house rule that. Another thing that is actually built into Era D10 that is house ruled is in World of Darkness a lot. I'm a big World of Darkness fan. I'm not going to lie. Era D10 came about because I like the World of Darkness rule set for 90% of gameplay until you get into combat, and then I'm really, really sorry, but no. just no. Just no. I want to finish my combat before I die of old age. That is a requirement for me for tabletop role-playing games. So I took, what I liked about World of Darkness, I put my own spin on it. I optimized the combat a lot. And it's something it's really easy. So you just roll, you look at what you got, you can see very quickly, oh, I know I'm rolling on a 7 threshold. Well, I got like 4 7s, so I know I've done all right. Or, oh no, I'm rolling on 10 threshold, I got no 10s. That's terrible. I probably failed. I've taken inspiration from games like Fate. There's a thing not dissimilar to Fate points, called luck points within the game that are based on one of your stats, which is luck, because luck really should be a stat.
Yes.
These are sort of all things that I've put together over the years that I was developing Era D10, and then obviously as I developed more systems, I've sort of refined my ideas and so on. There's really only one thing about the system that I don't like, and I really do need to figure out a better way of doing, and that's initiative. I don't.
Ah,
It's the classic way of doing initiative. You roll one dice and add it to your initiative number. It's classic, and I hate it. It's not intuitive for the rest of my game. I know that's how everyone does it. If you're an experienced player, it's really, really intuitive. And then if you're not an experienced player, and I've had the honor of running a lot of games at a lot of conventions that aren't role-playing game focused, that, I'll sit down at the big Comic-Con here in London, MCM Comic-Con, and I'll run with people who've never played a role-playing game or who played a bit of D&D or whatever, very, very limited experience. And what I see is they look at their initiative and I'm like, right, we're going to roll initiative now. And they pick up that number of dice. And I'm like, oh no, like I can see why it's not intuitive, but it's not going to work that way. If you just roll that number of dice with lots and lots of people in the combat, you're going to end up with a lot of ties.
Yeah.
So I need to come up with a way of dealing with it. And I've come up with a lot of options, but none of them I'm happy with yet. That if there is a second edition of these rules, it is going to be around that. I'm going to fix that problem. I'm going to. But I'm in it for the game, for the stories that we're going to tell together. I'm in it to create a universe, to let people tell stories, to enable rather than limit. And one of the nicest things that people can say to me at those kinds of events that I was mentioning, where maybe they're not experienced role players, is, you know what, I didn't think D&D was for me, but oh my god, this was amazing, and I want to play more role playing games. Whether it's mine or anyone else's, that is a result.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to claim that my games are the best in the world. I think they are, but I would totally understand if other people, don't get on with them. There are amazing indie games out there that are destroyed by the marketing machine of D&D. I really wish that there was a way of dealing with that problem. I try and deal with it in my way. I try and go, you know what? If this game's not for you, I totally get it. Try Fate if you want something a bit lighter and easier to run with. Try Eclipse Phase if you want a really good sci-fi game that really does deliver. Just try and avoid the hacking, because there's a point where realism becomes too much.
Yeah.
But I adore Eclipse Phase. I enjoyed the Firefly games that I played. I enjoyed playing the Dune game. It's got its problems, but it was a lot of fun to play within one of my favorite sci-fi settings. Dune is one of my favorites. I only played that at a recent convention. I had a spare slot, and I just thought, oh yeah, why not? Yeah, I'll play that. There are loads of really good indie games out there, and I kind of resent the marketing machine that's trying to convince everyone that D&D is the only choice. So anything that I can do...
D&D is both a boon and a curse,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely raised the visibility of the industry and what role-playing is and what role-playing can bring you. But they have so much money, and they want to convince everyone that they are the only option. And D&D is not for everyone, just like my game is not for everyone. I have some problems with it that it's not worth going into in this conversation. But it's not for everyone. It's not for me. And the fact that I was introduced to Paranoia first on a tabletop is a big reason why I understand that there are other things. If I'd just been introduced to D&D, I can definitely see that I wouldn't have understood there was another option, even now, years later.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shame, because that's what the marketing machine is trying to tell people. I dislike that about it. But as you say, it's a boon and a curse. It definitely has a big upside to, it's making role-playing more acceptable. It's making it less especially what they're doing right now, it's making it less the way it was shown in Angel, which just oh dear. But then you get you get Critical Role doing their thing, and you can see no, like normal people can do this too. They can have fun doing this. Yeah, that's a big deal. And because it's a money making operation, they do not want people to think, oh right, I wonder what other role playing games are out there. No, they want people to think, oh, if I'm going to have this kind of time, this kind of fun, I've got to play D&D. That's
Exactly.
my only problem with it, really.
Well, I don't know. I think these things come and go in cycles. Even if you go back to the beginning, there was TSR, and D&D was great, and then there'd be some kerfuffle within the gaming community, and then people would fall out and they say, screw this, I want new something else, and then it'll like be not cool and lay dormant for a while, and 5-10 years later it'll pop up again. I think we're in the midst of one of those times right now.
I agree with you. I mean, and Pathfinder has been a big beneficiary of D&D 4th edition, for example.
For sure.
Huge beneficiary of it. And they good on them. They seized the day and they really made something for themselves. They were nothing, as I understand it, and they really made it something. So good on them. That was impressive. It's a shame that it's the same rule set and not something a little bit different.
Yeah. Well, I've heard they're trying to change it more now. I don't know how much it's going to be changed.
Pathfinder 2 is a bit different. That's fair. It's a fair thing to say. I think that's caused people to either like or dislike it. Very Marmite reaction. You don't have that over in the US. You either love it or you hate it.
Yeah.
And I think, I think it's good to see that. It's, I like seeing the World of Darkness stuff come back. I wish they would stop screwing everything up. I wish they'd stop screwing up really badly all of the time. It seems like, one of my favorite games of all time seems to just be having run-ins with really unpleasant people. It's a bit tragic for me to see. Yeah.
That seems to be a pretty universal gaming thing right now.
It is.
So why don't you run us through the Kickstarter real quick?
Absolutely. So, as it says at the top, the digital definitive is $30 US, and the physical definitive, it's I've got a book of approximately the same size. It's enormous.
Wow.
It's going to look something a little bit like this. This is now a 5-year-old book, so you can see the binding is still completely intact. I use this book almost every day. So it's quite big. It's a chunky book with lots and lots of content in. As I said near the beginning, we want to solve some of the problems that we saw in other superhero role-playing games. One of the things that I found really, really blocking is that a lot of games go, you roll a check to see if you can use your power. Mm-hmm. But, if you watch Spider-Man web swing through the city, he is not rolling checks to see if he can use his power. He's just using it. It's as natural as breathing by the time he gets to where he's at. So what I did is instead I made it an attribute and a skill like any other. Your attribute is your base power. Your skills are how they work. That's really important to me, that you feel like a superhero. So I talk a little bit in the Kickstarter about the world, a bit of a summary about the power tree, and then I go into the events, which I explained in detail to you near the start of our conversation. Yes, I got all the way that far already. I go on to explain, this it lets you play anything that you'd like within that timeline. And then I go on to the rules. I just explain the rules a little bit. You try and achieve a number of successes. I've got a nice little image of people playing there. That is MCM Comic Con, and I have no idea whether those people were new players, but that's we often ran between 3 and 4 tables of games that were full for the entire Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
And I had a team of absolute heroes who would run games just all weekend alongside me. I talk about attributes and skills and how, again, most people house ruled this on World of Darkness. In my experience, there is no direct link between things. If you're rolling, to punch someone, maybe you're just going Superman and you're just going to try and overpower them, and just punch them really hard. Maybe you're going, I don't know, ninja, and you want to roll dexterity and brawl instead of strength and brawl. Maybe you're rolling, maybe you fight like Sherlock Holmes and you're like predicting what they're going to do and looking for an opening. Maybe you're rolling intelligence and brawl, and so on. I actually wrote an entire list of which combinations of things you would use and why you would use that combination. Why would you use luck and empowered, or luck and engineering? I've just wrong words. And so on. I move on to talking about characters. I just gave an example character. I talk a little bit about the character sheet there. I talk then a little more about how a power tree is built and how it's constructed. So just a little lower down, I was talking about how the base power is an attribute. So strength and dexterity are attributes. So is your superpower. If your superpower is, I can see drift poking up from the title there. If your superpower is density shifting, which is hers, you can density shift up or down. You might not be very precise. You might not be able to go through walls, but you can get lighter or heavier as easily as you can punch something or use your strength or your intelligence or whatever. The power development areas then are the ways you apply that. So learning to walk through walls, that would be a power development area for passing through objects rather than just changing your own density. And that's more or less how the power tree works. There are some guidelines in the rulebook, of course, about how you decide whether it's a primary or a secondary level of skill. I then talk about what the new stuff is in the book. So there's a few more stories that I wrote after I finished the core rulebook that I really want to add in. One in particular explores the end of the story of one of my favorite heroes in the universe. In sort of it was quite a moving story to write. I really rather enjoyed it. We've obviously got some more artwork. We've got some new power tree examples that I mentioned. We've got more help with building and balancing your own power tree. As I said, there are instructions in the core rulebook. I want to enhance that based on the questions I've been asked to try and enable people more to build the superpowers that they want. Updated GM advice, new sessions, and just a little bit of errata fixes, the odd typo here and there. In a book of 300 pages, there's always going to be something that creeps in. You're going to miss something.
Of course.
But yeah, I'm really happy with the way the book's looking. These mock-ups are really nice. They are mock-ups. They're not. They are what the pages look like, but they are mock-ups of how the book is going to look. It's not been printed yet, but I am very hopeful that it will be soon. With the current state of the Kickstarter, I'm very optimistic. If you just scroll down very slightly further, we run games online, and if anyone would like to join us on Discord, it's just above here. If anyone would like to join us on Discord, you can just click on that. You can join our Discord. Anyone is welcome to join. You don't have to own the game to play any of our games. You are welcome to join us. If you play a game and enjoy it, obviously, please support us, help us make more games. We use the money to make games. I have done about half of the ideas I want to do. So, yeah, that's the ideas I want to do now. I've not really thought about the things I might want to do at some point that I haven't thought about yet. Everything Pal's been around for a long time. We've done a lot of Q&As. We've done a lot of podcasts and interviews like yourself. Once again, thank you very much for having me here. I'm going to be honored to add this to the list. I did some. I added in the Calcops, the '60s inspired campaigns that I mentioned. They're being released gradually on YouTube because Dice and Stuff, lovely people, they decided that they didn't want to continue running a podcast some years ago now, but they handed over everything that they did to me and said, if you want to use it, you can use it, which was absolutely lovely of them. And I'm proud to put it up on our YouTube channel. There are also some reviews that people did a little lower down there, just in case you want an actual review that someone's done of the book. And yeah, I mean, I got a few quotes from people who thought various things about it. One of my most fun games is just a little further down. We had a chat with the cast of a UK-based superhero TV series, and I ran that game for them, and they really put 110% into it. The person they had to capture started annoying them, so the person who can make constructs out of shadows, think Green Lantern but with shadows, just shadow gagged him. It was just like, shut up. We're bored of listening to you talk. And I'm like, that was a lot of fun. And yeah, it was interesting because none of them had ever role played before. So obviously there were actors, professional actors, but they'd never actually role played before. And it was really interesting to see how they reacted. The lady there, who you can see in the still, said, if you're an actor, then you should role play, basically, because it's every single element of what you need to do as an actor is involved. So I thought that was really nice. And if any actors who maybe aren't into role playing saw that and ended up in role playing, it's lovely, it's brilliant. If you go a little further, as I said, Iranian Power's been around for some years. It's one of my favorite settings. We've done some comics and some audio dramas. These audio dramas are full cast audio dramas with some really great voice actors in. I was really happy to have Masako X from Dragon Ball Abridged play Lacuna, and also Lacuna's Uncle Joe. He did an amazing job. I've known him for years now. Really, really nice guy. There are some great voice actors in these audio dramas, and also me in a few places, because I really just can't get away from doing stuff. Immediately below, there is like a full-on session that I ran that is a little more serious than the Calcops thing. I would understand, like, Calcops is very silly. If you like very silly in your role-playing games, then you will probably enjoy it, but not everyone does. It's not for everyone. That's fine. Here is a more serious session. As I said, that's more my style. It's actually based in the Atlantis, or after. It's right after a peace has been made with Atlantis at the end of Event 2. But it does concern Atlantis and some various other things going on. So it's quite an interesting one. I do just go over the team. It's been a fantastic team to work with. John, Angus, Amy, Jennifer, Darren, all absolutely brilliant. Hande is a lifesaver and has been for years. She's also my proofreader. And she is possibly the only person I've ever met who is as grammar Nazi-ish and attention to detail focused as I am. Graham Penman, brilliant writer, good fun. Callie, second run proofreader, because you are going to miss things. She's great, and she does the indexing as well. So the book has a full index. I think that's an underrated thing these days. Leo Weiss, I've only met very recently, but he did an amazing job with the graphic design on this Kickstarter. Martin did a bunch of video stuff for us, and Devil has written maybe a dozen superhero and superhero adjacent themes for the Era of the Empowered Universe. I write better with music. And he's just gone and written some cracking stuff that we've used in some of the videos and such. Just a quick detail on where does the money go. People do like to know that. 40% of it is going into reimbursing me for the things that I have paid for and that I need to finish off. Printing and shipping is a huge amount of all of this. And Kickstarter takes 10%. It really isn't complicated. We do ship all over the world. Books are printed papers. They should not be subject mostly to customs charges. So they should go through. So that should be fine. And then we've got some stretch goals that I would love to meet. The first stretch goal is I wrote an encounters book for Era Survival that was all about, I don't want to travel along the road and just a zombie appears. What I did is I wrote literally 100 things that might happen to you when you're traveling. You roll 2d10 and you pick, the number that's indicated. And this is 100 different things. There's a strange device half buried on the side of the road. Or there's a toll bridge that you have to cross. That's for Era Survival. I'd like to do something like it for Era the Empowered. Maybe it's a supervillain appears. Fine, yeah, okay, cool. We can do that so many times until it gets boring. We need some other stuff that's going on. You can have you witness a near car crash and you need to get involved. You can do a lot of fun stuff that's the less, how do I put this? The less the epic side of being a superhero. You can have just some encounters that you run into. Save the cat from the tree. How many people actually include that in their epic superhero campaigns? It would be hilarious to include that from time to time.
Sure. Boy stuck in a well.
Exactly. Just the really obvious, simple stuff that's the classic superhero stuff. And then some stuff that's maybe a bit more esoteric or unusual that maybe you wouldn't have even thought of as a thing that could happen. I don't want to give too many of my ideas away, just in case I need to run another Kickstarter for this book at some point.
Right.
But, I wanted to be able to do that. I'd love to add additional artwork. And the third stretch goal is about, I mentioned Event 4 and how the old gods rise. I've got a nice long campaign that I'd really like to bring out for that, if people are interested. And then aliens. Aliens are a thing in most superhero universes. They have biology that makes them superior and different to your average human. And I would really, really like to, thank you very much, B_G space_C. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. That would be absolutely lovely. Thank you. I'd love to bring aliens into Era the Empowered. I don't know whether we're going to get there. It's definitely an idea I've got. I know exactly how I'm going to do it. I know what the alien species are. They've come up in sort of side stuff that I've done. And yeah, I'd really like to bring those to life. So yeah, stretch goals, I think are all good. And then the risks and challenges bit, which is boring. So yeah, that's the Kickstarter. Rewards, yes, probably worth a quick mention. So the player's guide. You were talking about the people who want just the top one there. That's we'll add your name to the backers list. Thank you very much for supporting. If you're going to do that, then please get the player's guide. Like it's something that you're getting. I appreciate any support, of course, but it's something significant. It's a 78-page book. It includes all of the rules. It includes briefing on each of the events that I spoke about at slightly more length than I was able to obviously say verbally. It's basically for the players, but you could run the game off it if you're an experienced GM who knows what you're doing. It just has no GM support in it whatsoever. So that's the trade-off. Players, and it's only £7, which comes to I think $9.50, something like that. The player's guide physical is available as well. It's, as I said, it's about 78 pages. It contains the same exact material. Definitive edition digital, that's about double the price, 2.5 times the price of the player's guide. But instead of 78 pages, getting 360 pages. I'd like to think that this is a pretty good choice for most people who want it in digital. It's hyperlinked, it's bookmarked, it's got all of the stuff that you need to navigate a digital copy. We've been doing digital books for 10 years now. It saddens me how badly some people do it. It's not complicated. Throw in an index, throw in hyperlinks. You can do it programmatically. You don't need to do everything manually. Yeah.
And would you say that this is maybe the best version for someone who's never played an era, or they don't have any of the books so far? Is this like the best entry point?
Whether you want a digital or physical is more like obviously a personal preference.
Sorry, I mean like this level as opposed to the other books, or
the definitive. If you want to play and run the game as a group, I would always recommend the definitive over the core rulebook because there are learnings in it, right? If you scroll immediately down from there, we have a limited number of core rulebooks around. They are available. You can get a core rulebook if you want to. I've done it at a discounted price. It's up a bit from there. It's £40, which is, I don't know, about $52 for a hardback. It's the book I was showing you earlier, but this is the paperback. That one's the hardback. I think the definitive edition is better. This Kickstarter is about the definitive edition, obviously. You can get the hardback off our store. I think you will do better with the definitive edition than you will with the core rulebook. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making the definitive edition. So yeah, that. I would recommend the definitive edition. Yes, in short. I move on down to I've recently finished a movie that's set in the universe. If you're interested in some of the side stuff, there's the whole story digital, which has the digital rulebook and everything. It also has a number of books that we've written in the universe, the movie. Just some more background on the story. Below that, we've got obviously the physical definitive. If you want the book, you've already seen it on camera here. It's quite chunky. It's just above that one. And then finally, we've got the definitive collection, and we've got the Everything Empowered. That is all 17 of our current comics. I've written more; they haven't come out yet. All 17 of our current comics are audio dramas. The samples above, they're samples. They're not the full audio dramas, but if you like them, you can get them. The movie on Blu-ray, the definitive edition, it's everything. If you bought the stuff off our store, it would be £350, which is £51 more than we are asking for it. How have my conversions been? I've just realised that
pretty good.
Shows you how have they been? That's been mental maths there.
Pretty spot on, actually. That's impressive.
I think a lot about the US people who play. There is, by definition, because there are more people, a larger market in the US than in the UK. Okay. I'm based in the UK, and I follow Kickstarter's rules. I don't have an easy time doing non-UK stuff. But I try to be very considerate of people from the US who want to get involved in the games. It is.
We appreciate that.
To try and, I don't want you to feel like, oh yeah, well, this is people from the UK who mostly care about people in the UK, and they're making it hard for. I don't want any barriers to entry. As I said, it's about enabling people to tell stories.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people, like in the comic book industry and everything. There's a lot of problems with between Europe and the US, just because usually when you get a comic, you want that in paper feeling. but with the price of shipping, it's almost doubling the price of the book.
As someone who ships comics, yeah, it's a problem.
All right. So, what other sort of words of wisdoms would you like to leave us with?
um, Era the Empowered is a game about empowering you. I know that sounds like a corny line that I've come up with in the past, but actually, I don't think I've ever used it before. It's a game about giving you the opportunity to play any superhero story that you want to play, and it's designed with that in mind. It's a rule set that I have seen countless brand new players who've never even touched a role playing game before pick up and play. Actually, one of my recent really nice experiences, I've started running a group at work, and only one person at work who's joined the group has ever role played before.
Oh,
Um, but they're smart guys who, they're all computer programmers yeah, no, I think they are actual developers. So they're all developers. They understand math. They understand how to do arithmetic and whatnot. That is really all you need, and a willingness to suspend your disbelief and play a story. If you're willing to do that, you can play the Empowered, whether you are a new player or someone who's played thousands of role-playing games and knows absolutely everything about everything. I think you can enjoy Era the Empowered. That's what I want from this. The money that we get goes to making more games and more material for our games. It's not about, a large corporation getting rich. It's about making more people able to play. I think that's really important to me. I hope that you guys feel the same. Everything that we build, there are more games that build on the Era D10 rule set and the various other things that we do. If you know how to play Era the Empowered, if you know how to play any of the Era games, you know how to play all of them. You just have a few little tweaks to learn about how is this tweaked for the world that we're in now. And then if you want to learn about the world and the history of the world and what exists in it, that's there for you. It's there to support you. And finally, for me, if you hop onto Discord and you play a game, you might play with me, you might play with someone else. We've got a team of absolutely awesome GMs who really put 110% into every single game. Join us, try it out, try it for yourself, see if you like it. If you like it, come support it. We are indie creators who want to keep creating. This lets us keep creating. That's what it's for.
and one thing I forgot to ask before. Let's say someone says, well, I'm not really into superhero games, but that spaceship game looked pretty cool, or the fantasy game looked impressive. If they go to Shades of Vengeance, can we find everything on there?
You can find almost everything on there. So there is a period of exclusivity for Kickstarter backers that I, again, feel is really important. If they've helped bring it to life, they're going to have it first, and they're going to have it free and clear for a few months. If you're looking for role-playing games, then you can see in the top left of your screen or middle left of your screen, there is a try our role-playing games little link there that will just filter out everything except the games. If you are into comics or anything else, then and there we are, Era the Consortium, which is the sci-fi game with all of the bits and pieces. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see all of our games. I apologize for our store. We're actually in a transitional state and trying to improve the situation. It's a little bit. I kept writing and I didn't really change how the store was working, so I understand. But there is a jump to a little drop down there. So, if you know which game you're looking for, you can jump to that specific game right below where it says games right in the middle. So, yeah, if you know which game you're looking for, you can jump straight to the game that you're looking for.
Nice.
Yeah. So, Year of the Chosen is our horror game that we built. Where an outside force is invading our world, but almost no one can see them, so people just vanish, and it's an existential horror kind of game. Very
cool.
good fun.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here on a getting later evening for you.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute blast, and I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much.
Me too.
All
right. So everyone else, this evening, the day of too many streams continues. I have Tyler from Draw and Talk. He will be on at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're talking about how to market indie books. A lot of it will be comics, but everything also applies to role-playing games, to novels, whatever you want to do. Marketing is marketing. Friday.
Tyler's a really, really knowledgeable guy. Like, if you're listening, then yeah, definitely go along if you want to know about marketing. He knows his stuff.
Friday evening, I will be on the Dungeon Delvers channel playing the human in a mech suit Rex Dashington in Classic Gamma World. And more updates coming soon about my own campaign, Empire of the Undying Sun. So thank you, everyone, for stopping by. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys a little later.